give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
So, Durham University demand the head of one of their principals. Twitter extends its censorship policies, and Parliament prepares to vote on vaccine passports. This is Free Speech Nation. In the 16th century, Nostradamus predicted that a great king of terror would descend upon the world. All he got wrong was the date. See, Nostradamus thought that this would happen in the 7th month of 1999. In fact, it was the 12th month of 2021. It was last Friday, in fact. And it took place at that great seat of learning, the University of Durham. You know, the place where all the posh kids go if they don't get into Oxbridge. There had been a Christmas dinner at South College, and the King of Terror himself had been invited to give an after-dinner speech. And who is this man, this beast, this epitome of evil? Little. The protests following his appearance have been quite unhinged. I mean, there have been petitions, there have been calls for the principal of the college, Tim Luckhurst, to be sacked. It's quite a mess. So what happened exactly? Well, Luckhurst had invited Little to give the after-dinner speech because, well, I suppose he was thinking that a famous journalist with an entertaining style and sometimes provocative opinions would be quite a coup for the college. After all, these students are there to be challenged, aren't they? To expand their minds by being exposed to the full spectrum of opinions. Apparently not. Some students walked out before hearing what Little had to say. Maybe they could smell the sulphur. The principal called them pathetic, which may not be the nicest thing to say, but it does have the advantage of being true. Of course, they have every right to walk out, but if they had stayed, they would have realised that Little's speech was about tolerance, about the need to hear views that you may find uncomfortable. And their behaviour in the aftermath has simply gone and proven his point. Now, I support anyone's right to engage in peaceful protest. But to put pressure on the university to sack Luckhurst, to ruin a man's livelihood, that's not right. And now, of course, Luckhurst is under investigation. Well, what do you expect when you spoil Christmas dinner by inviting the Antichrist? I have plenty of thoughts about this. So the first is, we've got to remember that the students who are doing this are in the minority. We're not hearing from those who watched the whole speech and gave Little a standing ovation at the end. We're not hearing from those students who think it's a great idea to hear alternative views, even and especially if they disagree with them. As ever, it's just the noisiest ones that we hear. And we shouldn't be writing off a whole generation as snowflakes on the basis of the idiotic behaviour of just a few of them. As ever, the strings are actually being pulled by activist academics who don't believe in tolerance or free speech. For all that this debate is being misrepresented as a simple generational difference, I've often noticed that the most vociferous proponents of this kind of intolerance are coming from my generation, and more young people are pushing back against this illiberal trend. And the other thing we really need to focus on here is the way in which the concept of safety is being abused in order to silence dissent. Nobody's safety is compromised by Rod Liddle, unless you're reading one of his articles in The Spectator and you get a paper cut. But inevitably, that's the language that the protesters are using. Let's take, for example, the petition, which has been penned by these 4 groups. OK, so we've got the Durham Intersectional Feminist Society, we've got the Durham LGBT+ Association, the Durham University Labour Club, and Durham Women's Association. Now, nobody yet knows how to pronounce Women's or Women's, or we don't even know what it means, really. So it's kind of difficult to take their association all that seriously. It's a bit like getting a complaint from the Association of Flippity Bobbles and Chomple Smucks. You know, it doesn't really mean anything. But anyway, in this petition, they call for an immediate apology from the event organiser and an acknowledgement from the college principals that it is inappropriate to invite harmful guests. Harmful, you see, not just offensive, not just upsetting, harmful. And then we've got this from Professor Anthony Long, who's the acting Vice-Chancellor of Durham University. Anthony Long says the events of last Friday at South College have caused considerable distress and anger across much of our community. We are committed to providing a safe place to live, work and study for all. There it is again, a safe place. And what about this? So this is a testimony from one of the students who actually walked out. This is what the student said. I have not felt this unwelcome, ostracised and unsafe since arriving at the university. I'm furious that this was allowed to happen. If there is no apology or repercussions, I cannot see myself remaining here. Now, the best response to this would be, OK, bye-bye then. But of course, the university will capitulate, as they always do. They're going to ignore the majority of students who think this kind of thing is nonsense, and they're just going to focus on the minority who are making their infantile demands. So we need to understand that activists will always claim to feel unsafe because the strategy works. It's an essential aspect of cancel culture. If someone goes to their employer and says, my colleague expressed an opinion I don't agree with, the employer will just shrug and say, well, OK, too bad. But if someone says their safety at work has been compromised, the employer is obliged to act, because then it becomes a duty of care issue. The language of physical harm is a rhetorical device intended to strengthen the case for ideological submission. And we're allowing them to get away with this trick. It's our fault for taking it seriously. So we need to change our response to these kinds of fatuous claims. Every parent knows that if a child has a tantrum and you give them what they want, they'll have another tantrum, and another, and another. And before you know it, the kids are in control. So by all means, let these people carry on screaming about how unsafe they feel while they're busy trying to destroy other people's lives. But unless you start ignoring them, the screaming is just going to get a lot louder. On Free Speech Nation today, I'm going to be talking about free speech on social media platforms with the former advisor to President Trump and the CEO of the new social media platform, Getter. That's Jason Miller. That's coming up later on. You're going to be hearing an exclusive clip from that conversation later in the programme, and you can get the whole thing on YouTube or wherever you get your audio streaming services. Also, I'm going to be joined by the actor, activist and Reclaim Party leader, Lawrence Fox, to discuss his new movie and the state of British politics. On my panel today, I have comedians Nick Dixon and Lewis Schaefer, everyone. So I want to go to my audience first. How are you, Lewis? How have you been doing?
I've not been doing that well, no.
No, OK. No. You do realise this is just a pleasantry, and really what I want is some kind of simple response.
Well, I'm not like
Andrew.
I'm not like you. I take things seriously. Words are important.
Right. Yeah, you're too honest.
Yeah.
You will, Nick.
I'm doing very well. I had 5 comedy gigs this week, and I'm just thinking soon that might not be possible with all these vaccine passports.
It probably won't be.
Who knows? You know, because I'm against the vaccine passport. I'll just have to live in my house like Lewis does, just totally alone.
Yeah.
Five in 1 week.
Well, but can I just say something? That's why I'm not doing that well, because people like him come to here and brag.
They do.
No, it's because they give me the gigs.
They take all the gigs.
Yeah, they give me the gigs.
To be honest, 5 gigs in 1 week, that's a lot, even in other
Well, they base it
circumstances.
on whether you get laughs, you see.
Oh,
and thanks, guys. Some of you like, why is he being so mean to Lewis? But we always do this because we love each other, really.
Yeah.
Well, I love him.
If you have to explain the context, though, I mean, this is very mean. I think we should all be a lot more friendly to each other tonight. Let's try and do that. Let's be positive.
Yeah, Lewis feels unsafe now.
Even someone who, you know,
I'll try to be
is clearly
positive.
a misanthrope and depressive. I still want you to seize the bull by the horns tonight and just be a jolly individual full of fun and life and joy.
Do you feel safe, Lewis, or do you feel unsafe?
Do you feel safe?
No. I feel like this is my last appearance on here.
Oh, for goodness sake. All right, well, I'll be the judge of that. But listen, do either of you have any views about this? I mean, I've been noticing this more and more about this idea that people say, I feel unsafe, when what they really mean is, I don't agree. And it does strike me, it can't be anything but a trick, can it?
Yeah, go on.
No.
Well, you said something which is every parent knows that if you give a child...
Yeah, if they have a tantrum and you say, OK, you can have what you want, then they know, well, the tantrum works. And that's the same as someone saying, well, I feel unsafe, and then they get what they want, and then they do it again, and they do it again, and it keeps happening.
No, you're totally right, but every parent doesn't know that, especially not English parents. They give, and Americans parents too, they give into their kids. So these kids at Durham are just, they're the same kids who their parents gave into.
Well, we should be careful, because we found out just before there's actually a student from Durham in the audience. I'm not going to go to you, don't worry, because I know you're not wanting that. But I think it's a lovely place. I've been there. Friends of mine went to that university. I think it's a great university. But I also think, and I will re-emphasise this, I think the majority of students are not playing these games, are not saying they feel unsafe. They're saying, great. I mean, I did a talk at Aberystwyth University, and it was the International Politics Department. They'd invited me there, and they said they wanted me to talk about satire. I remember it was a talk about satire. And the department, it wasn't the students were great, and even when they disagreed with me, they wanted the chat, and they wanted to be challenged, they wanted to engage. And the politics department itself, the academics, people who are my age and older, they said, you can't publicise the event. They refused to publicise the event, they refused to come, and they said because anyone who was against woke culture would go against their diversity policy or something like this. And I saw the email that was sent to the students. Absolutely insane. So it's not the young people. I really worry about
Although in this case, the students did complain, didn't they?
They did, no, and I'm not saying that students never complain, because they clearly do. There's a lot of them.
You're saying we shouldn't listen to them when they do.
I'm saying, no, I'm saying absolutely we shouldn't listen, but secondly, well, we can listen to
We should ask them what they mean by unsafe, and then drill down into it, and then you might get some strange answers, because what do they actually mean by unsafe?
I don't think they know.
Although, Rod Little did make me feel unsafe recently, because he said that people who are against masks, people who think masks are an infringement on their civil liberties, don't deserve civil liberties, which I thought was shocking. So I was going to join the SDP, now I'm out.
But does it make you feel unsafe, or does it make you just feel like, oh, I don't like him anymore?
Yeah, the latter.
Yeah, it's a different. Like if he came in with some nunchucks and some switchblades and stuff, I would feel a bit unsafe.
Right.
And that'd be really weird, but it would make great TV, wouldn't it, if Rod Little did that? But the thing is, it's this thing about just expressing an opinion. I don't see how you can.
No, you basically proved the point, is that if most of the kids are not saying anything about this, then they're snowflakes too, because they don't have the strength to go against it. So all these young students, everybody is going with it. Well, except for you and me and Nick.
Okay, well, we are the brave people holding out against this culture. The legends.
I think that was a very good point.
Yeah.
It was a very good point.
What, your point?
Because, my point. Because you're basically sucking up to say most of the kids at Durham are all right, but they're not all right. They suck.
Outrageous, and I don't agree with him, by the way. I'm just going to say that to the kid in the audience.
But they suck. They suck at every school.
You've done no basic research.
I know that they haven't stood up for Rod Little. Have most of the people stood up for him?
No, wait a minute. A lot of them have, but they're not being reported on.
Yeah, some of them are really cool. Do you know who's really cool? Is the youngest, like the teenagers, like on TikTok. You're on TikTok. The humour is so outrageous. Well, last time I went on it was anyway to check this. It was so outrageous stuff you can't say in even stand-up clubs anymore. Yeah. So that generation, I have hope in. Oh, I mean, because they're going to be the backlash against the millennials.
But it's difficult being a teenager, because I remember, because I was one. I don't know if you know this, but I was a teenager. Really. And I found it really hard, because it's that weird kind of combination of this urge to rebel, right? But this urge to conform. And you want to do both, right? But the thing with this social justice movement is it gives you the opportunity to completely conform while claiming that you're rebelling. Well, it's perfect. You get best of both worlds. Anyway, that's my pearl of wisdom for the day. Honestly, just pearls before swine with this. Anyway, thank you. One person clapped, but I asked for it, so it doesn't count. Anyway, so we're going to go out to the audience, though, because I'd like to get some questions. First question today is from John. John, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Let's hear your question, John.
My question is, do you know anyone who's resigned from their job because they joked about a party that apparently didn't happen?
A party that apparently didn't happen, or should we say parties? You know, I don't know how many parties are going to come out. It's like this thing with the Conservative. I presume you're talking about the Conservative Party.
It was 7 the other day. It was 7, which I was saying was 1 for each of the deadly sins. That's probably how they arranged it. I don't know what goes on.
Well,
then they added an 8th.
Are they themed?
Yeah, they're themed. Yeah. Gove is greed and all this. I don't know how it works, but I'm not libeling Gove, but he probably would be. But the point is, they had 7, then it came out as 8. There's more and more coming out all the time.
But this is the thing with it. It's like when the number of times that Justin Trudeau did blackface, right?
Right.
Because he did there was like 3 or 4 came out. And then all of a sudden, they asked him how many more pictures are going to come out, and he said, "I don't know." So he must have done it all the time.
Can I say one thing to just shout out to the GB viewers? A lot of the GB viewers are getting sick because I've looked at tweets of the party stuff, because some of them really love Boris still. So I've been very.
This is true.
I have been very against the parties. I do think they were disgusting. I do think putting these rules in place that you don't even follow. But maybe we are talking about it too much. Jacob Rees-Mogg's thing. I don't think he was doing anything that bad. He was making a joke. the fact that they were social distancing, they weren't going to be investigated in a year. It was a joke, but I don't think it was too bad.
I think the point of that video, and I know you're talking about the video, the leaked video of Jacob Rees-Mogg talking about this stuff. And the problem with that is that they clearly weren't socially distancing, and he was being light about it. I mean, I agree with you. I've heard a lot of this on Twitter. People saying, "Why are you basically holding the Prime Minister to account?" I would have thought that's quite important. I don't think it's punching down. Let me put it that way. And I think if they are making these rules and saying that there are young people being fined, what was it, £10,000 for Christmas parties.
Terrible.
Obviously, the hypocrisy has to be talked about, and you can whinge all you like on Twitter, but I'm going to talk about it. What do you think, Lewis?
I think it's hypocritical not to get upset at the Tories for being hypocrites.
You're a contrarian.
No,
you're just a contrarian, Lewis.
All right, then I'll agree. I agree. He's totally right.
No, I'm sorry. I apologise. Say what you want to say.
No, that was hurtful.
That's made you insane.
Yeah, he's insane.
Yeah. No, but okay. So you think that we should?
First of all, is they're the Tories, and they're hypocrites, and everybody knows they're hypocrites. Okay, number one.
It wasn't in their manifesto, though.
No, it wasn't. No, but we know they're hypocrites. Okay, number one, and number two. I mean, all politicians are hypocrites. That's why they're politicians.
That's why they went into it.
Yeah, that's why they went into it.
Fine.
Secondly, they're conservatives with they love to party. They're the wildest people in the world because they believe in God. They know they're going to be punished by God, and it's way more fun. They know they shouldn't be caught banging a hooker. They shouldn't be.
I think we should.
Can I say that? No, well, can I finish my point?
Yes, but can I just apologise if anyone at home was offended by the phrase?
The amount of fines we get because of Lewis,
honestly,
it's unbelievable. We get so many letters. There's a whole wing devoted.
I thought that was all right. He might not like to say that.
You know what's worse? I was about to apologise for the phrase, and I realised I almost said the phrase. Which just compounded your error.
How could I say that in an appropriate way?
Someone had an association with a person who works in sexual practice.
The whole point, with respect, Lewis, the whole point was wrong because as if the Tory party now even believe in God. They don't believe in anything, these people. They're not conservative.
No, but they have a feeling that it's still wrong, as opposed to the Labour people who don't.
But the rest, I doubt.
Okay, all right, I'm going to just cut it there because we have got a little clip, actually, of what went on at Downing Street. Can people look at this?
We must, I'm afraid, look again at Christmas. And as Prime Minister, it's my duty to take difficult decisions, to do what is right to protect the people of this country. And given the early evidence we have on this new variant of the virus, the potential...
I genuinely don't understand how it is that they thought they could get away with this, because of all the places in the world, Downing Street, there must be more CCTV there. There must be ways to monitor who comes in and out and what they're doing there. I mean, they must have known at some point this is going to come out, but they just thought, you know what, doesn't matter, it's a fun party. Is that what it is? Is it just nihilism?
I think it's just extreme arrogance. I think they're just completely detached from the rest of the world, the elites at this point. They don't even think about it. Right. I mean, there's this story now of Boris, wasn't there? Breaking curfew, running around restaurants, not wearing a mask, annoying all the staff. Did you hear that one? That was another story.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, with Carrie, who was at some meal. Allegedly, I saw it last night on Twitter.
Is it that they don't really believe in the regulations themselves? I mean,
yeah, they don't believe in them. They don't believe in them, exactly. And the weird thing is, people, they look at this and they're outraged, but then they don't take the next step of going, well, hang on, they obviously don't think there's a big risk then, so maybe there actually isn't a risk. There's two conclusions you can draw. You can draw the conclusion that, OK, there's clearly no risk because they're not bothered. Or you can draw the conclusion they're deluded, elitist idiots, and actually there is a risk and we should carry on following it.
So, but I mean, and by the way, for those of the people who are complaining about the fact that we're even talking about this, if there was footage of Keir Starmer doing the same thing, I'd be playing that. I mean, that's absolutely fine.
Well, Labour might have been at some of them. We don't really know yet.
No, I mean, they're not together, presumably, but they probably were.
They probably did their own ones. BBC are allegedly doing it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. All right, allegedly, I do say allegedly.
Hit that word allegedly quite strongly.
Can I just make...
You can always make your point.
I'm just sulking here.
What, are you actually sulking now?
Why? Because you said another thing that got a big fine.
No, Lewis, tell me why you're sulking and we'll deal with it.
I don't know, I didn't think it was that bad.
No, but listen, I agree what you said wasn't that bad, and I really enjoy all your contributions. But the problem is there's a body called Ofcom, and they have a different idea about the world than I do, and they also have the power to fine and take our cameras away. But that's the only reason I'm mentioning it, that's all. Don't sulk, Lewis, because otherwise it'll be a really
We like you, the regulators don't.
Yeah, we're on your side here. I'm defending you. You know?
I don't think you are. I think you've got to risk the programme.
I've got to risk the programme and the channel for my love of Lewis Schaefer. I think that's a fair point to make. Anyway, listen, we're going to go to a break now. We're going to get some more questions later on because there's quite a few tonight. So join us after the break.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
So, looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking very windy with blustery showers in the north, cloudy but mild further south. Let's take a look at the details. Monday will get off to a rather cloudy but mostly dry start across southwestern England. Temperatures will be well above average too, thanks to the southerly wind. The southeast of England will also see mild southerly breezes blowing in, although there'll be a lot of cloud and a few brighter breaks are possible. A different story though across Wales, where cloud will be extensive and thick enough to give some outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle. Much of the northwest of England will also have a grey and damp start to the new week, although skies do look a little brighter towards the north, across North Lancashire into Cumbria. And a similar north to south split is on the cards across northeastern England, with cloud and the odd spot of drizzle affecting some southern parts, while the sun should make an appearance further north. Southern and eastern Scotland will be generally dry and bright, but quite windy, and a very strong and gusty wind will continue to sweep its way across the north and west of the country. A few blustery showers are possible near to the northern coast of Northern Ireland as well, but much of the province should escape fine and bright. Little change expected through the morning, with further blustery showers in the north, patchy rain and some brighter spells elsewhere.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
After the break on Free Speech Nation, I'm going to be joined by Lawrence Fox, the actor who's going to talk to us about his party and his new movie. But meanwhile, I'm now talking to Professor Joe Cox, who is taking the Open University... Sorry, Professor Joe Phoenix, who is taking the Open University to court because of... Well, I'll allow her to explain this as a story. Joe Phoenix, everyone. So, Joe, I know that a lot of people won't know about your story and what happened, so I think I just want to turn this over to you and ask you to tell us your story from the beginning. What happened to you?
Certainly. The story goes back in time about 2 years, but I'm not going to tell you a 2-year-long story.
OK.
We've
got a limited amount of time.
Everyone will fall asleep. But suffice to say that I was one of the unlawfully cancelled professors from Essex University.
Right.
I was due to give a lecture on trans rights in prisons. The students kicked off, the staff kicked off, the lecture was cancelled. I was blacklisted from Essex University.
Right.
December 2019. That started a whole series of problems within my own university, the Open University. I was made pretty much to feel like a pariah. I was kind of put on the outside. At one point, a colleague told me that my views were like having a racist uncle sitting at the Christmas dinner table.
Can you clarify, people who are watching, because they won't be clear, what are those views and why did people find them so rebarbative? What was it about them?
Well, I mean, it's very... I still struggle, OK? I'm going to admit that to you. So I believe that sex is immutable, that if somebody is transgendered, they can't actually change their sex, although they may change their gender identity.
Sure.
I do believe in trans rights, but I also know that in particular contexts there is a contest between trans rights and sex-based rights, and we see that particularly in prisons.
Yes.
Right? I believe that we need single-sex exemptions in particular places, and those single-sex exemptions, meaning women only or female only, exist largely for reasons to protect women from male violence.
And of course, your area is criminology, so this is particularly important to you. Is the idea of, you know, obviously a lot of the women in prisons will have been victims of sexual assault. We've seen examples of male-bodied individuals who identify as women and are transferred into female prison, the female prison system. And a lot of people, I think, when they hear that, they don't think that's actually happening.
No, and this is one of the really confusing bits. Most people think that somebody who is transgendered in a trans woman in a female prison will, and forgive me for being vulgar here for a second, may have had some sort of surgical intervention.
OK.
Not necessarily.
So it could just be a matter of identity?
Yeah, it could just be a matter of identity. And it could be a matter of identity plus a GRC, a gender recognition certificate.
Right.
From my point of view, when the government announced the self-identification policy, i.e., you can just identify as a woman and become a woman without any intermediary process, like, you know, doctors signing it off, that, to me, threw red flags in the air.
But you're not at all saying that trans people shouldn't have the same rights as everyone else?
No, I would never do that. I mean, I've been out as a lesbian for God knows how long. I've fought for, you know, the rights of sexual minorities for all of my life.
Yes.
So no, I'm not.
I just say that because I know that that's the allegation that is often thrown towards anyone who has the kind of views that you've mentioned. But also, of course, interestingly, the views that you've just outlined will be the views that are shared by the vast majority of decent people in the country.
Generally, until recently, we didn't think they were controversial.
So, with that in mind, now that we've got a sense of what the views were and why people turned against you, can you just talk to us a little bit about your experiences with the Open University, with the other academics? What happened there?
OK, so various things bubbling away in the background for 2 years. It all came to a head this summer when I launched with colleagues the Open University Gender Critical Research Network. A Gender Critical Research Network is a group of academics who want to get together, who think that sex is important and want to research how, where, why sex matters in different social contexts. It's not particularly challenging, I didn't think, but it produced the most violent reaction in the university. It was almost like the university had a heart attack. Several of my close colleagues organised a public harassment campaign. This public harassment campaign ended up with a letter asking the university to distance itself from the research network, asking people to sign the letter. There were over 360 academic staff who signed that letter, basically asking for us to be shut down and accusing us of transphobia simply for using the name gender critical, right?
I see.
Now, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. They also time-stamped a podcast that I had taken part in. And as evidence of my supposed, and all the other network members' supposed transphobia, was one bit where I had the temerity to criticise Stonewall.
Right.
Right, now we know what happens when people criticise Stonewall.
We do, yes, exactly.
And there were two other bits that I didn't even say, it was the podcaster who said.
OK.
So not only was it a very highly defamatory letter, it was also calling for direct discrimination. That was also coupled with two other open statements that were placed on university servers, accusing the network of contributing to a climate of hostility and asking for the university to, in effect, shut us down. Now, I want to come back to that because part of my job is to do research. So if you ask my employer to shut down my research network, you're asking me to shut down my research.
Of course.
So it's a direct call for discrimination.
Yes.
Now, I submitted a claim a grievance to the university and said, I'm being bullied in Harris, this has gone back for 2 years, it's erupted into this, please do something about it because it's affecting my mental health, my well-being, my work, etc.
Yeah.
I got signed off with acute PTSD.
And you flagged all this to your employers?
Oh, yes, yeah, almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And this was in the beginning of June that this happened. Almost on a daily basis. And the university dragged its heels, dragged its heels, dragged its heels. Now, on November the 12th, I received an email from HR telling me I had asked them when the outcome of this grievance would be.
Yeah.
Because in the meantime, I haven't been able to do much of my work.
No, of course.
You know, there are 360 people who think I'm a transphobe in my university. The well has truly been poisoned for my name. So I asked, when will I get an outcome? And they said, well, you may get an outcome before Christmas, or you may not.
And that process is part of the psychological torture, isn't it, in a way? Because it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Almost as though the process is the punishment in this situation.
Quite. And here's the problem. Where people have been accused of transphobia, it doesn't matter whether or not it's true.
No.
That accusation is enough to end careers at this point. We know what happened to Kathleen Stock.
Yeah.
Right? We know what happened to her. And, of course, my story is much less dramatic than Kathleen's. But yesterday I announced that instead of just going through that grievance, I actually announced yesterday that I'm taking the Open University to court for constructive dismissal.
Yes.
Which, in my mind, it's the first time any of us, and when I say us, I mean people who have been accused and vilified in such a manner, have actually tried to hold their universities to account legally.
So this could set a very important precedent.
I'm very much hoping so, yes.
Yes.
I'm very much hoping
so. What is the next step then? What will it be? It will be literally taking it to the court and see what...
Quite literally, yeah. Well, I lodged a complaint that they failed to protect me from bullying and harassment about a month ago. We will amend that complaint to include constructive dismissal.
Yes.
I resigned my post last week. Happily, I have a new post that I can go to on the 1st of January to a university that takes seriously its commitments to academic freedom. But at the moment, the Open University have 28 days left to respond to my claim.
Okay.
And then it's the standard court process.
And why do you think it is that so few academics are willing to take a stand when it's quite clearly harassment and bullying? I mean, there's no getting around that. And I would have thought that all academics are for the principle of academic freedom, and particularly because the views that as we've said, the views that you're mentioning aren't exactly the most egregious, outrageous views in the world. They're fairly mainstream ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 25 years in the game now, 24 years in the game, and there has been a change.
Right.
I think we have some academics who see themselves more as activists. You've mentioned this before on your programme. And I can understand why they think that. There are things happening in universities that kind of engender that type of response from some of our younger academics. You have a whole flank of people who are terrified, afraid, or just don't want the trouble to come to them. You know? So I know several of my very close working colleagues have, I've said to them, why haven't you stood up for me?
Yes.
And they've said things like, well, we don't want to get in trouble like you've got.
And these are people you know well?
Yeah, that I've worked with.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that I've worked directly with.
And then how do you respond to that when someone says to you, well, I can't, we might be friends, but I can't take a public stand because it's too risky? Do you understand where they're coming from?
I do. And, the big grown-up in me says, yeah, why would you want to put yourself in this situation? My name's been dragged through the mud for 2 years. Do you know what I mean? And since June, it's been the most public of conflict, and it keeps me awake at night. So why would I want them to experience that? But then on the other hand, I sit there and think, yeah, but if you don't stand up with me, then you leave me to have my head shot off.
So is this the point that it's going to have to be a numbers game, that there's going to have to be a sufficient number of people who are willing to stand up and say, no, this isn't right?
No, I think it's the law we need.
Right.
If you don't mind me disagreeing with you.
Of course not.
Yeah, no, I think it's the law that we need, because at this point, management, now, I'm not talking about the Open University management, but just in general, management haven't come down one side or the other. Right?
But I thought your views were protected by law. In the Maya for Starter case, that established that gender-critical views are protected by law, in fact. So don't the universities have a responsibility already?
Yeah, but law is only as good as the mechanisms that are used to implement it. Right? So at this point, my university, failed to implement any of those protections. Yes. Right? So then the only recourse now is to take them to court so that the court will force them to implement it.
And if that happens, if the weight of the court is behind what you're saying, then surely that will encourage more people to be open about what they think.
I hope so. I mean, I'm not doing this. You know, the very last thing I ever wanted to do, and this is, you know, the honest truth, I do not want to be a poster child for this campaign.
Yeah, I understand.
Right? I've become one, accidentally and reluctantly, but having become one now, what we really need is that legal framework so that universities know they cannot leave people like me out at sea, just being shot at by vile accusations.
Well, it's an incredible story. I wish you all the best, and I hope that it works out the way it should.
Yeah.
Joe Phoenix, everyone. And there's plenty more still to come up on Free Speech Nation. Please don't go anywhere. We're taking a break.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. So later in the show, I'm going to be turning agony uncle with the help of my panel, Lewis and Nick, to help you deal with your unfiltered dilemmas. So please email us. If you've got any kind of problems at all, we can solve it, I promise you. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk, and that's just below me now on the screen, and we will do our best to answer your personal problems. Still with me, I've got my lovely panel, Nick Dixon and Lewis Schaefer, everyone. Now, I know that we, Lewis, are you over your sulk now? Because you were sulk. Yep, OK, much better, that's fine. And you're full of joy, as you always are. You're just
we gave him some cakes in the break.
Oh, well, that's the key.
Oh, no, he's not going to eat it. Not really.
No, he's not on a cake diet, is he? Anyway, we won't get into that tonight.
Totally no carb.
You're doing a no-carb diet, that's no good. Anyway, we're going to get back to the audience, because there were lots of questions we didn't get to before. So we've got a question from Andrew. Where's Andrew? Hello, Andrew. Okay. Oh, have you got your mic?
Should classic literature be updated?
OK, should classic literature be updated? So this is in reference to the Orwell estate, who have approved a feminist retelling of the classic novel 1984. And this is an American author called Sandra Newman, who's going to tell the story of Julia, who's Winston Smith's, the protagonist's love interest in 1984. What do you think about this, Nick? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that was the problem with the totalitarian society in 1984, was the patriarchy. So we need this book. No, I'm totally serious. People thought I was being cynical there. And
I definitely thought
sexist, but I wasn't. No, it sounds like an all right book. It sounds like quite interesting. But, you know, women, I mean, you stopped then because you looked somewhere. I was about to say a Lewis Schaefer-style point about women.
Say whatever you want.
Save me. No, women are responsible for fascism. What it is, I figured it out. I figured out. Men do the fascism, but women go along with it because, according to Jordan Peterson, women on average are more agreeable This is not me saying this, it's Peterson.
Well, wait a minute. You know, Hitler, Goebbels, Goering, these are all men.
They're all men, but they had women sort of helping them, didn't they? Like,
what, pulling the strings?
Who was Eva Braun, wasn't she? She was there sort of giving Hitler ideas.
So you're saying Eva Braun is the true mastermind?
Behind every strong man, Andrew.
Goodness. Goodness me. Well, I take issue with the idea of Hitler as a strong man, but there we go. Lewis, thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't read the book, first one.
You haven't read 1984?
Haven't read it, no. I didn't
it's
see
a real
the movie.
page-turner.
But I did see
we're living through it now, so you may as well have it.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. It sounds exactly like the time that we're in right now. But I did see the commercial.
Okay.
And...
was it good?
That was the Apple commercial.
Oh, the Apple one, yeah. Groundbreaking.
Well, the thing is, you know, I don't have a problem with this. It's an author who wants to tackle a literary classic from a different perspective. I mean, we had this with Wide Sargasso Sea, the John Reese novel about... the woman in the mad woman in the attic, the Jane Eyre story. So what's wrong with this happening all over again?
Yeah, it does happen in literature quite a lot. I think Coetzee's done it with a few. Do you know J.M. Coetzee?
I do.
Just throwing out some names. And by the way, he
reads books.
But have you? Yeah, just ladies. But have you read?
Because that's what they want.
Have you? Oh,
they want a man who
some
can
do.
Quote.
Have you read the real Orwell classic, Keep the Aspidistra Flying?
I have.
You have?
Yes.
Well, most people I can stump with that.
Oh,
but that's a great book if you haven't read it. If anyone says, have you read 1984, just hit back with that.
Or The Road to Wigan Pier, hit back with that. Or
well, I've skimmed it.
Okay. But I think it's an interesting thing to do. But I think the way it's interesting because the way it's been framed in the media has been, oh, this is Orwellian because they're rewriting Orwell. Well, they're not. It's just a novelist who's who's been inspired by the novel and is taking it in a different way.
Well, this has been going on forever. The idea, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
Exactly.
And that's Shakespeare, so I can name
he can do it too, Nick.
Okay, he's not the only one.
That was good.
Yeah.
So it's just from and that's the story of the perspective of two inconsequential characters in a Shakespeare play.
Yes.
Right? Which is basically what this is going to be.
Same thing.
Same thing.
So that was Tom Stoppard, though, and this is a female writer, so they're spinning it like
women can write.
They can, Lewis.
I mean, a lot of words. They like words. they like words, so that they can write. But the point is like unfortunately.
Here comes the point.
We'll get there in the end. What is the point, Lewis? I think you already made the point.
is things are done by men.
Okay, let's move on there. Incredible wisdom from Lewis tonight. Things are done by men and women can write. So there we go. That's the main takeaways from this show. Let's go for another question now. This is from Claire, who can not only write but ask questions. Where are you, Claire?
Incredible.
Where is Claire? Hello, Claire. Hi.
Hi. Should being a self-declared secular atheist be a sackable offence?
Okay, so this is this Jeremy Sleeth, who was the train conductor, won this unfair dismissal claim after he was celebrating the reopening of pubs, and he was saying, you know, this is great because he doesn't want to live in an alcohol-free caliphate, and that was the phrase that got him sacked.
No, not completely.
Okay, no, go on then, Lewis. Am I wrong about that?
No, you say the word.
Well, is there an extra word in there that I don't know about?
Yeah, there was an extra word.
Oh, I think he used the word Muslim.
Yes.
I think he said Muslim alcohol-free caliphate, yes.
Yeah,
you're allowed to say Muslim on TV, that's okay.
No, but you're not allowed to say Muslim alcohol-free, I think. I think he could have said an alcohol-free regime.
Yes, I think he accepted that the way he phrased it because it was clumsy. Because he was specifically talking about an extremist position. He wasn't talking about the
a specific one. He's thinking maybe what's going on in Iraq or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. But the question is, should he have lost his job for maybe a misjudged turn of phrase?
Yes.
Thank you, Lewis. Always standing up for free speech there.
Well, I mean, what is he going to say? And I'll go the other way.
Of course, he shouldn't have lost his job. When he got attacked for racism. I hate to get all technical, but you know, Islam's not a race, so he got attacked for racism, which didn't make. We've all seen those white ginger Islamic people, right? So it doesn't make. Some people are laughing at that. It doesn't. It's just a fact. It's not actually a race, so he shouldn't get sacked for racism. And then he won the case for unfair dismissal. Although there was something put in there about. The compensation should be reduced, I think something like 60%, because he was kind of asking for it a bit. And the other thing he did, I'm paraphrasing the judge, and the other thing he did was he tagged his union in the post, which is not that advisable. So they said, it could be related to your your work because you've tagged your union.
Yes.
But he definitely shouldn't have been sacked.
Well, I mean, no, I think he shouldn't have been sacked. I mean, it was in a private capacity. I think it is odd that he tagged his workplaase.
Yeah, that's more. That's
if
more
you're going to say something
ill-advised.
a bit dodgy online, then don't tag your
Yeah,
boss.
you're normally hoping they won't see it. He tagged it. He's like, I want everyone to see this. But yeah.
You know, but I think absolutely. I mean, surely, like in your own private capacity, if you're making these statements, and actually, it's not that controversial.
No, I'll defend. No, I
Why does Lewis think he should lose his
No,
job?
no, no. But I think Lewis doesn't. Really.
He's an idiot. He should be fired. You don't want someone like that driving your train who's an idiot who doesn't know you can't say things like that today. I mean, maybe you should be able to say things, but we're not allowed to say things. And he shouldn't be an idiot to have said that.
So actually, your criteria is just a matter of intelligence. You don't want, you want an intelligent train driver.
Yes.
You don't need to be that intelligent. I mean, the tracks don't move, do they? You just go. Is that controversial? I don't know. I don't know
Someone
anything
is
about.
taking everything as very controversial.
Listen,
the tracks don't move, guys.
All right, I apologise to any train drivers who
It's
are
quite a
watching
stressful
this show.
job. I think it's quite stressful.
I'm sure it is a stress. I don't know anything about it. I mean, I'm obviously
I
utterly
support
ignorant.
the train drivers.
So do I, Nick. Oh, I'm going to get myself.
But he has to work with people at this company, and you want people who know. Who is it a major thing? I don't think it's a major thing.
It's not a major thing. Okay, let's get another quick question. Sorry, Lewis. We'll get another quick question from David before we go. David, where's David? Hello, David. Yes.
Hi. Should a choreographer just stick to dancing, or can they get involved in gender debates?
And of course, this is referring to choreographer Rosie Kay, who quit her job after being accused of transphobia. But I think what is particularly bad about this one is it's her dance company, and she got accused of this because at a private party that she'd put on in her house for the various members of the dance company, and she expressed views that are not a million miles away from what Joe Phoenix was saying earlier in the show, which aren't surely controversial views, are they, Nick?
No, this was a very infuriating story. She had this, if you haven't followed it, she created this dance company. She's an accomplished choreographer and dancer, and she invited some young people to be in her new show. And she brought them around the house for they wanted to see around the house. They were excited to look around the house. At one point, she showed them like her child's bedroom, as you would in a house tour. And they said they were made to feel uncomfortable by that. It's like, it's a tour of the house.
It's a tour of the house.
So they made these complaints, and then she didn't even get to see the allegations against her. She lost her show, which was upcoming. The board cancelled their show. This is her own company. And she didn't even get to see the allegations. It's a disgusting story.
It is a really bad story. Unfortunately, we have to go to break now because I would like to explore that more, but we have to go to break. Coming up on Free Speech Nation, we're going to get an exclusive clip from my podcast with the former advisor to President Trump and CEO of a new social media platform, Getter. That's Jason Miller. So join us after the break.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
So, looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking very windy with blustery showers in the north, cloudy but mild further south. Let's take a look at the details. Monday will get off to a rather cloudy but mostly dry start across southwestern England. Temperatures will be well above average too, thanks to the southerly wind. The southeast of England will also see mild southerly breezes blowing in, although there'll be a lot of cloud and a few brighter breaks are possible. A different story though across Wales, where cloud will be extensive and thick enough to give some outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle. Much of the northwest of England will also have a grey and damp start to the new week, although skies do look a little brighter towards the north, across North Lancashire into Cumbria. And a similar north to south split is on the cards across northeastern England, with cloud and the odd spot of drizzle affecting some southern parts, while the sun should make an appearance further north. Southern and eastern Scotland will be generally dry and bright, but quite windy, and a very strong and gusty wind will continue to sweep its way across the north and west of the country. A few blustery showers are possible near to the northern coast of Northern Ireland as well, but much of the province should escape fine and bright. Little change expected through the morning, with further blustery showers in the north, patchy rain and some brighter spells elsewhere.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. On my upcoming podcast episode, I am joined by the former Trump advisor, Jason Miller.
People are always going to go and raise questions about what angle you're coming from, or is there a particular bias? I don't hide for any second that I'm a conservative Republican, that I'm a Trump supporter, but I think it's important that we have a free speech platform that's available to everybody. Initially, a lot of the passion in the free speech movement is in the center-right space, but that's not historically where much of the free speech passion has been. So as we start to see, with Mr. Agrawal, the new Twitter CEO, I think there'll be new restrictions, more censorship with big tech. Not even just with Twitter, but with Facebook, Instagram, all sorts of other platforms. I think you're going to start to see more and more people look for a free speech alternative. And one of the exciting things, I think one of the most dynamic things about the Getter platform this early on is the fact that only about 37% of the customer base is from the United States. We've really grown globally. And so just in the same way that people in the UK, for example, don't wake up and say, are we Republicans or are we Democrats? People in Brazil don't wake up and say, are we Tories or are we Labour? People have different perspectives from all around the world. In fact, our top three countries by user growth are the United States, Brazil, and Japan. A lot of diversity there. And I'm really proud of some of the what I would say is not traditionally political folks who've joined our platform, such as Boston Celtics center Enes Kanter Freedom, who's made a lot of noise criticizing President Xi, President Erdogan, even LeBron James, Gina Carano, the actress from The Mandalorian. We have several UFC fighters, former New York Mets and Phillies All-Star Lenny Dykstra. So a lot of exciting people who don't necessarily come from the world of politics, but believe in free speech.
I think you raise a number of interesting points there. In particular, when you talk about this idea that the centre-right seems to be the space where people are calling for more free speech. Now, when I was a young person, it was very much more voices from the left that were calling for that. Now it seems that voices from the left are more hostile to free speech. So when a new platform emerges, it's inevitably tarred and labelled as one thing or the other. How do you think we've got to this point where free speech as a concept it can be so readily dismissed as a right-wing talking point, as I see that all the time?
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. I think a lot of it is just simply that the traditional structure, whether that be big tech, whether that be the mainstream media, whether it be some of the global elite, to speak in a very general phrase, have been unable to control the political forces they've seen around them. Again, not just exclusive to the United States. Look at Brexit, for example, the way that snuck up and surprised many in the UK media, many of the elites in UK who obviously were very upset with that outcome. Take a look at the way that President Bolsonaro won in Brazil. He certainly snuck up on the elites in big tech and big media. And of course, President Trump. Really, President Trump's superpower, not just in 2016, even going into 2020, but it was greatly inhibited in 2020. His superpower has always been able to bypass the mainstream media, to go and talk directly to people without that filter that typically a politician would have to go through. He snuck up on people in 2016, but they were ready for him, and he didn't sneak up on them in 2020. They changed the rules of the game in the middle of it. They started to censor and shadow ban, and ultimately, after January 6th, deplatforming President Trump altogether. And I think that much of it, you could say, has been a TDS, a Trump derangement syndrome, where it's continued to push people into respective corners, but not exclusively, as we've seen from a number of countries around the world. But taking a step back for a moment, I think this is really concerning, this broader trend of the polarization and big tech and big media saying, we're going to give you your free speech rights, but only if we agree with what you're saying. I think that's the wrong direction to go. I think everybody needs free speech. In fact, one of the big efforts we're making a push with, or try to get the Bernie Sanders type supporters, people are a little more left of center, but are also a little more distrustful of the government, who do believe in that inherent right. And I think that as a democracy, or democracies, obviously the US and UK and Brazil and Japan, other countries being separate, it really hinges on that ability for self-expression and political thought. And as soon as we lose that, we become a totalitarian state.
So your view with Getter is very much that you're not going to emulate what Twitter does, but from a right-wing perspective, because Twitter, of course, as you point out, firstly, I mean, deplatforming the president is quite an astonishing thing for a company to do, and obviously partisan. But then in addition to that, you've got them hiding the New York Post article on Hunter Biden and preventing people from sharing. So into what we might call political or electoral intervention going on there. So you would say that with Getter, you're not going to do that against leftists. That's not the way you're going to run this.
No, not at all. In fact, I'll frequently repost people saying less than favorable things about me just to show that, hey, we'll have Democrats and people on here. I'll usually make a snide comment such as, I think I found Hunter Biden's burner account, or Hillary, is this you? But we're not going to do that. As long as you play within the boundaries. Obviously, we don't allow people suggesting unlawful activities or people threatening bodily harm, just in the same way that you can't walk into a pub and threaten someone physically and not expect there to be a repercussion. You can't go and someone physically on the Getter platform, and we're not going to put up with any racial or religious epithets. I don't think that's political free speech. I think that's going into a different road. But when it comes to your right to express yourself politically, even if I am at the polar opposite of what I think, and or other people on the team, we think you're absolutely crazy and that's not the direction that we believe in, you're expressing your political thought, you're welcome to come and do it here. And in fact, we invite you. All that we ask is that if you support free speech and you oppose cancel culture, we think you'd be a perfect fit for Getter.
And you will find, I think, that there will be lots of people from the left who are joining you in that. I mean, around the time of the Trump's election, I remember I was contacted by a number of Bernie Sanders supporters who had actually voted Trump ultimately. And I think it's tied to these culture wars, is that people find themselves politically homeless. We've had the same in the UK. The last election saw a landslide for the Conservative government, and you saw traditional Labour left-wing voters voting for the other side, which is a massive, massive shift. And one of the reasons is they feel like the left has abandoned them, that it's not really authentically left-wing anymore. I mean, you mentioned Brexit. Well, the idea that the left suddenly comes out in force in favour of the EU, a massive pro-corporate trading bloc that has capitalism built into its constitution, it feels actually incoherent to be an EU supporter as a traditional left-wing person. So this leaves people completely alienated. I mean, is it maybe the case that because of the culture war, because of these free speech issues that you're addressing, actually left and right doesn't really mean anything anymore?
Yeah, and you're starting to, I think the whole traditional definition of left and right has changed. I think whether it be in the UK or in the US, I don't want to speak more broadly around the world, but it's very much that, ironically, you can make the case that the Tories or the Conservatives are more in favor of the working class people than the party that's named the Labour Party. Same thing in the United States, where the parties have really realigned to where the Republicans are really the party of the working class. Democrats are the party that, with the exception of specific, say, racial or whether it be racial or gender or some different identification politics that are carved out, it's largely the party of the ivory tower, college educated, global elite type class. And so it's rearranged, it's changed a lot. I think a lot of that has to do domestically with President Trump. And obviously, as we saw with Brexit, those are kind of the changing winds globally.
Can I ask you specifically about setting up Getter and the problems that you might face? And I'm thinking specifically here about Parler, for instance, and the way in which once Parler was set up as an alternative to Twitter, the major social media tech giants collaborated, as far as I can see, to eliminate it, to prevent it from succeeding. Do you sense that you will have any kind of difficulties of those kinds as Getter continues to grow?
Great question. I think that the approach that we've taken has been much different. We've had a robust and proactive moderation policy since day one. And I do get heat from that from some folks saying, well, wait a minute, how can you have a robust and proactive moderation policy and still be the free speech platform? And that's simple, because you do have to have some boundaries, some standards. You can't have people being doxxed. You can't have people putting on and threatening individuals or suggesting illegal activity or sedition or things like that. The problem with Parler is that they had zero moderation, and there's a difference. When you talk with some of the big tech partners or people that you might have to work with in some capacity, as long as you have a moderation platform and you're proactively addressing things, and you do have terms of service that are abided by, we use both an AI system and also human moderators. So it's a two-pronged approach to go and deal with it. Then you can work well together. They might not like your political backing, but the fact of the matter is that we do moderate the platform. Parler's problem is they literally had no moderation. They had what they call a community approach. Here's the problem. When you become a successful free speech platform, you get attacked by the CCP, you get attacked by ISIS, you get attacked by the Russians, you get attacked by left-wing bots and trolls. There are people who flood your platform or attempt to flood your platform with so much material simply to go and try to say, well, look at all this bad material that's on the platform. You need a bigger set of hands to help than just the quote unquote community standards or community policing. That's not enough of a defense.
You can listen to my whole conversation with Jason Miller on my podcast. It's called Free Speech Nation, the podcast. And that's available to download right now, or you can watch that on YouTube as well. It's 8 o'clock. You're watching Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. It's 8 o'clock. You're watching Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. We are going across to Polly Middlehurst on the news desk, who has an update from Downing Street. That's going to be in a short while. But before that, back to me. Now, one of the strangest aspects of our current culture wars is that so many who identify as being on the left have become cheerleaders for big tech censorship. Because, of course, if Karl Marx were alive today, he'd be the first to champion a small group of multi-billion-dollar corporations to determine the limits of what the little people can and cannot say. Leftists cheered when social media tech giants deplatformed the President of the United States. They whooped and hollered when they banned accounts for suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the coronavirus had been leaked from a lab in Wuhan, even though they've now come to accept it might be true after all. And leftists seem to love it when gender-critical feminists, almost all of whom are diehard socialists, get thrown off their platforms for the crime of claiming that biological sex is real. Yes, this is what the left looks like these days. Not unlike, well, what we used to call the right. One of the stories you may not have heard, which was this was during the US election campaign, when Twitter prevented its users from sharing an article from the New York Post. The New York Post, by the way, is not just some blog by some online conspiracy theorist. It was founded in 1801 by Alexander Hamilton. It's a reputable and established news outlet. And the story in question concerned Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. Now, This was about Hunter's laptop, which had been left for repairs at a shop and which contained evidence to suggest that he had used his father's influence as then vice president to make money. It also suggested that Joe Biden was fully aware of this. Now, neither Joe nor Hunter Biden has ever disputed any of the claims made in that article, but Twitter and Facebook suppressed it at the time on the grounds that this was misinformation. Now, it is difficult to escape the conclusion that they simply didn't want an article that would be damaging to Joe Biden's campaign from gaining traction in the run-up to Election Day. They'd learnt what had happened to Hillary Clinton and the damage that was done by the investigations into her deleted emails. So if any user tried to post the link to the Hunter Biden article, it was simply blocked. And the official Twitter account of the New York Post was suspended until they agreed to delete all references to the article. How else can we describe this other than a grave encroachment into press freedom? Some have even made the case that this qualifies as election interference. Either way, the question remains, why on earth would we allow big tech to decide on the limits of free speech? And recently, Twitter has updated its terms of service. This is just a couple of days ago. And this is to give them the power to ban or sanction accounts that claim that vaccinated people can still spread the virus to others. Well, there's a problem there, because the scientific consensus appears to be, to quote the UK government's website, even if you are vaccinated, you can still be infected with COVID-19 and pass it on to others. So is Twitter saying that the scientists and the government are wrong? And will they be banning scientists who make the claim? The point, surely, is that we shouldn't be allowing big tech to make judgments on what we can say and what we can read. If there is misinformation out there, which there most certainly is, the best way to tackle it is through better information. Win the argument. Don't just silence your opponents. And if you're really looking for moral guidance, do you think that faceless billionaire corporations, those avaricious plutocrats in Silicon Valley, are really the best place to look? Now, I'm going to introduce my next guest here, who knows an awful lot about this particular story about Hunter Biden. This is because he's playing him in a forthcoming film. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome Lawrence Fox. So, Lawrence, now, tell us about this film. This is the film about Hunter Biden that you've agreed to play this role. It's quite an incredible role to take on. What made you want to do this? Tell us about the film.
So the film is called, thank you for having me on, Andrew. The film is called My Son Hunter.
Yes.
And it's...
sounds almost sweet, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. Have you listened to his audiobook recording of Beautiful Things? Is actually could turn you into a leftist if you listen to them. It's beautiful. It's so compelling.
Oh, OK.
Anyway, it's written by two journalists, Anne McElhenney and Fiona McAleer. Sorry if I've got that wrong, Irish people. And it's essentially what they've done throughout their filmmaking careers is that they've taken actual events and turned them into monologues or duologues or plays. So they did one on Ferguson, they did one on Struck and Page. And it's just reporting to what was found on Hunter's, I think, 2, possibly 3 laptops now.
Yes.
And,
there's a lot of laptops out there, right?
a lot of laptops, a lot of orgies, and a lot of information about what he got up to.
And it's not disputed. Like he's not disputing it either.
No, it's not. It's there.
Yeah.
I think there's a book called The Laptop from Hell that's coming out shortly.
Great title.
That covers this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I'm an actor. Well, I was an actor. I got a sabbatical from my cancellation as an actor. So it was really enjoyable to go and play a lunatic, except for the fake crack. By the way, I can tell you, smoking fake crack is really bad for you, and why I'm still coughing. It's probably as bad as real crack, just without the good side.
Oh, it's like the fake cigarettes that people smoke in plays. I mean, they're bonfires, aren't they? They're horrible.
They're horrible
things. So you're now in this movie, and when's that coming out?
I think late spring.
OK, late spring.
Where will it go, though?
Well, OK, so this is the question. Yeah. If Twitter have the capacity to shut down an article about Hunter Biden, then surely they have the capacity to limit the spread of your movie, right, if they wanted to?
I think they will, but I think there will be 70-odd million Americans that probably quite want to watch it.
I should imagine so.
Yeah.
OK, so, I mean, I want to talk to you about your acting career, because obviously that's what you were known as. You obviously, you're an actor, you're in Lewis, everyone knows you for that, and you're also a musician. And then this thing happens to you, which is your appearance on Question Time. And this is almost 2 years ago now. This is January 2020.
God.
OK? Now, I don't know if the people in the audience were aware of this appearance on Question Time. And I think a lot of people misremember what was going on there. And you appeared on Question Time and it caused a huge stir, didn't it?
It did.
And your whole life changed?
It did, but I almost think for the better, in a way.
Okay.
Because I was getting slightly bored of being sat on film sets and having people talk about how privileged they were, or how privileged, underprivileged they were. And I'm like, you're on 25 grand a week.
Yes.
You're pretty privileged.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're gay, straight, white, black, purple, green, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all privileged on this film set. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
So I got a bit bored of it and started saying that publicly on film sets, which had made people didn't like me because I wasn't playing the oppression narrative.
Yes.
So, you know, I ended up on Question Time, I was promoting to music, and I said, and I watch it annually as a thing to make myself feel more whether I'm crazy or not, and I still agree with myself, which is a concern.
Well, we're
double cancelled.
We're going to go through what you said on Question Time, but before we do that, we do actually have a special announcement, and we're going to go to Polly now for that announcement from Downing Street.
Andrew, thank you. Indeed, a special announcement now from Downing Street as the Prime Minister addresses the nation in a recorded statement on the COVID situation.
Good evening. Over the past year, we have shown that vaccination is the key to beating COVID and that it works. The UK was the first country in the world to administer a vaccine. We delivered the fastest rollout in Europe, and we've begun the fastest booster campaign too, with over 500,000 jabs delivered yesterday alone. And these achievements, made possible by the extraordinary efforts of our NHS, including thousands of GPs and volunteer vaccinators, have literally saved countless lives and livelihoods in this country. But I need to speak to you this evening because I'm afraid we're now facing an emergency in our battle with the new variant, Omicron. And we must urgently reinforce our wall of vaccine protection to keep our friends and loved ones safe. Earlier today, the UK's 4 chief medical officers raised the COVID alert level to 4, its second highest level, because of the evidence that Omicron is doubling here in the UK every 2 to 3 days. And we know from bitter experience how these exponential curves develop. No one should be in any doubt. There is a tidal wave of Omicron coming, and I'm afraid it is now clear that 2 doses of vaccine are simply not enough to give the level of protection we all need. But the good news is that our scientists are confident that with a 3rd dose, a booster dose, we can all bring our level of protection back up. I know there will be some people watching who will be asking whether Omicron is less severe than previous variants and whether we really need to go out and get that booster. And the answer is yes, we do. Do not make the mistake of thinking Omicron can't hurt you, can't make you and your loved ones seriously ill. We've already seen hospitalizations doubling in a week in South Africa, and we have patients with Omicron in hospital here in the UK right now. At this point, our scientists cannot say that Omicron is less severe. And even if that proved to be true, we already know it is so much more transmissible that a wave of Omicron through a population that was not boosted would risk a level of hospitalisation that could overwhelm our NHS and lead, sadly, to very many deaths. So, we must act now. Today, we're launching the Omicron Emergency Booster national mission, unlike anything we've done before in the vaccination programme, to get boosted now. A fortnight ago, I said we would offer every eligible adult a booster by the end of January. Today, in light of this Omicron emergency, I'm bringing that target forward by a whole month. Everyone eligible aged 18 and over in England will have the chance to get their booster before the new year. And we've spoken today to the devolved administrations to confirm the UK government will provide additional support to accelerate vaccinations in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. To hit the pace we need, we'll need to match the NHS's best vaccination day so far and then beat that day after day. This will require an extraordinary effort, And as we focus on boosters and make this new target achievable, it will mean some other appointments will need to be postponed until the new year. But if we don't do this now, the wave of Omicron could be so big that cancellations and disruptions, like the loss of cancer appointments, would be even greater next year. And I know the pressures on everyone in our NHS, from our GPs and doctors, nurses to our porters, all of whom have worked incredibly hard. And I thank them for all the amazing work that they've done. But I say directly to those of you on the front line, I must ask you to make another extraordinary effort now, so we can protect you and your colleagues, and above all, protect your patients from even greater pressures next year. So from tomorrow in England, we're opening up the booster to every adult over 18 who has had a second dose of the vaccine at least 3 months ago. The NHS booking system will be open for these younger age groups from Wednesday, and that's the best way to guarantee your slot. But in some places, you can walk in from tomorrow. We will also assist this emergency operation by deploying 42 military planning teams across every health region, standing up additional vaccine sites and mobile units, extending opening hours so clinics are open 7 days a week with more appointments early in the morning, in the evening and at weekends, and training thousands more volunteer vaccinators. And we'll set out further steps in the days ahead. It's because of the threat from Omicron that I announced on Wednesday that we will move to Plan B in England. You must wear a face covering in indoor public spaces, and from tomorrow, work from home if you can. And from Wednesday, subject to a vote in Parliament, you'll need to show a negative lateral flow test to get into nightclubs and some large events if you're not double vaccinated. These measures will help slow the spread of Omicron, but we must go further and get boosted now. If you haven't yet had a vaccine at all, then please get yourself at least some protection with a jab as quickly as possible. If you've already had your booster, encourage your friends and family to do the same. We're a great country. We have the vaccines to protect our people. So let's do it. Let's get boosted now. Get boosted now for yourself, for your friends and your family. Get boosted now to protect jobs and livelihoods across this country. Get boosted now to protect our NHS, our freedoms and our way of life. Get boosted now. Thank you very much.
That was the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, giving an update on COVID-19 and the booster programme. Now, let's get back to Free Speech Nation.
Thank you, Polly. So I'm just going to go straight to Lawrence Fox. Do you have a response to Boris Johnson there? Any thoughts about that?
Boris Johnson is the Omnicron, is the Jussie Smollett of the coronavirus, isn't he?
People might not know who that is, but...
Well, Jussie Smollett is the guy that attacked himself...
Faked a hate crime against himself.
In a racially aggravated self-hate crime.
Yes.
It's like, you know, I think someone pointed this out very rudely and wrongly, but, you know, Alec Baldwin's killed more people than Omnicron at the moment. So let's just be straight up about the fact that all this is, look at his rhetoric. And also, by the way, I'm exercising my free speech. So I know I know it's a nasty thing to say, and you know, Alec's interview was very, very moving, etc. Blah, boring. But the point here is, Borisky's trying to milk this to death. And it's like, why are you using such powerful rhetoric like surge? We're all to wave. We're in trouble.
Well, I mean, isn't it the case, though, that whenever there is a national catastrophe, politicians can almost always use that to their advantage? I mean, think about Thatcher with the Falklands. You can use any kind of event, and even if he is sort of exaggerating the extent of the problem here, there's a lot of capital to be gained for him.
And I also, but I do think your elected officials have to be unimpeachable in these positions. You know, we're commentators in a way. I mean, I'm actually run a political party, believe it or not. But the point is, you know, if you're going to lead something, be unimpeachable about it. Right. Don't sit there and terrify people.
Well, while we're on that, so, you know, we were talking earlier about you, obviously you were known as an actor, and now you found yourself as a politician. And I believe there's some news this week about your party, the Reclaim Party?
Yes. So in a bid to try and... This is news, by the way. In a bid to try and...
It is GB News.
in a bid to try and break down this sort of monolithic, ridiculous system where if you vote Conservatives, you get Labour. If you vote Labour, you get Palestine. And if you vote the Lib Dems, you get people that don't believe in women. Its existence. My funder, Jeremy Hosking, has doubled his backing so that we would like to trigger by-elections across the UK. So there's 10 million quid out there to trigger by-elections across the UK so people can actually vote for something more commonsensical and reasonable.
So you're in it now, aren't you? This is it, you're really throwing yourself in. And the idea of a third party, are there not always going to be problems with a... I know exactly what you mean, is that a lot of people are politically homeless at the moment, and they don't know how they can vote for either. And you've also got both the people in power and the opposition sort of singing from the same hymn sheet. But because of our first-past-the-post system, because of the way that our electoral system is it really feasible to make any kind of difference as a third party?
Well, the thing is about life is I bump into people all the time, and it's like they go, I need help. I need somebody to represent me. So we'll see. You know, the only thing one can do is try.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to be an easy thing. These little con artists have been at it for hundreds of years, haven't they? It's a very serious thing. No one knows anything about it. We had a massive party, and now we're going to bring in new restrictions. Don't attack me. Here's the cat on the table. Everyone be quiet. That's
it's quite uncanny,
It's
Lawrence.
so ridiculous, isn't it? What a douchebag.
Now, I have to... So let's just return to... Because I want to go back to where we left off before the announcement. And this is to do with the infamous appearance on Question Time. Because I remember watching it at the time thinking... Oh, well, I mean, that's reasonable. I watched that and thought you were saying reasonable things. I just want to run through the things that the basic points that you made on that appearance. You said everyone should be united in our condemnation of racism.
Yeah.
You said the word racism should be reserved for racists. Yeah. You pointed out that the fear of being falsely branded as racist can have catastrophic consequences, and you cited the revelations that the Manchester police had failed to protect children from rape and violence due to concerns over race relations. And you also argued that the concept of white privilege was unhelpful and was generalising. And actually you also mocked Shami Chakrabarty's suggestion that the Labour leadership should be decided on the basis of gender. That pretty much covers everything, the main things that you said. What's controversial about any of that?
Well, I think that we live in a godless world. So in the olden days, you would have these sort of truisms that we would pass on, like, I want my children's lives to be better than the life that I lead, and all these sort of boring truisms that we pass on. Sticks and stones may break my bones. And now we just are focused solely on immutability, solely on what we cannot change, and we seek to change what we cannot change: biological sex, race. You know, you look, the Justice Smollett thing is a good idea. It's like, there isn't enough racism, so I'm going to invent some.
Yeah.
And what you do is you distract from the real problem, which is there is direct racism in this world. I have a friend who is married to a mixed-race person and was called a wog socket in a park.
And just to clarify the context you're quoting, this was an abusive term.
This was an abusive, horrible term. So direct racism does exist, but to smear an entire wonderful country like Britain, which is the most tolerant, progressive country, progressive in the realest sense of the word, as systemically racist made me so angry I had to say it.
So just to apologise if anyone at home was offended by the word, but Lawrence was very much quoting the word to condemn the word. So we just want to make that absolutely clear there. Now, it's interesting, though, that you say that, because you were never at any point in that Question Time appearance claiming racism doesn't exist or that it's not a problem that we need to tackle. That's what I found so confusing, because actually you were very clear about that. Racism does exist, it's an evil, and we have to tackle it. And you said the words. And so therefore, why do we have this revisionist thing where people then use that appearance as evidence that you were suddenly the thing that you were condemning?
Well, I think it's very easy to wear your conscience on the outside, isn't it? You know, I was raised by my parents to wear my conscience on the inside. So it's like, if you feel something strongly, live it.
Yeah.
Whereas we live in the phone age where we're sort of attached to our phone, and it's very easy to virtue signal and moralise. And you essentially, I was talking to you before about Titania McGrath. She's now accepted mantra across most of the mainstream media.
Well, I mean, they tend to come true.
Yeah, I mean...
Which is horrible, a horrible feeling.
Well, it's great that you've got it right. It's just terrifying to see what she's going to say next.
Yeah, or some of the things that haven't yet come true that might, which really worries me. So, you were misrepresented. I think that's I think you can all agree on that. And then you have Equity, the Actors Union, denouncing you. Yeah. And I think they actually used the word denounce.
They did, the Equity guys.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. They said you should denounce him. So I thought,
They're your union, aren't they?
Well, I never joined them because I thought they were a bunch of beeps.
Okay. Thank you for censoring.
No problem. So I never joined actually the union. But when they did that, I thought, oh, you really are out to get me.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, that's fine. I've learned one lesson in life, which is not to give up. So if you're not wrong, like I'm not ever trying over my arguments over free expression. I'm never trying to say I'm right. I'm just trying to say we need to have the chat.
Well, we're always all wrong about something.
Exactly.
Right. So you're not claiming infallibility or anything, which I would say that some of your critics do claim for themselves, actually.
Yeah.
But the attacks. Well, so there was that, and then of course you came off Twitter for a while because it was quite. There was abuse. There were death threats even.
I had poo put through my letterbox. I've had I'm going to murder you and your children put through my letterbox.
So this sort of very serious criminal activity, let's call it what it is, does that push you then? Because, I mean, I would say sometimes when I see stuff of yours on Twitter, I think, that's a bit provocative.
Yeah.
Like, why did you do that? Is that really helping? But do you think you've been pushed into that? Or do you think, or do you think I'm wrong, that actually you need a bit of provocation? What's your view on that?
Well, how do you teach people that what free speech is? You put it in action.
Right.
So what you have to do is you have to push the borders of it and go, what are you comfortable and uncomfortable with?
Yeah.
And then you can generate a conversation. If we're told you're not allowed to say that women are women, you're not allowed to criticise anything to do with the diversity, equity, inclusion agenda. You're not allowed to criticise anything about the climate. You're not allowed to do any of this. You're suppressing people's free speech.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. So what I do, and I have to admit and apologise to all our leftist friends that I am a human being. So I do often go right to the limit of what is and isn't acceptable.
Do you ever say stuff you regret?
No.
Okay.
No, so I tweeted "Get kneeling beepers" to a Manchester City football player, and my point was football players seem to be overrepresented in the molesting young girls category. But immediately the criticisers jumped on and said, well, that's racist because you're talking about a black footballer. And I'm like, it didn't even cross my mind, the colour of his skin. I was just going, here you go again.
But that's a good example, though, isn't it, of something where you could have maybe
expressed it better.
Well, also, you're on Twitter, it's a small number of characters. Maybe think about it a bit more before you tweet. Think about how things might be received, maybe.
Yes, I think that's true, but I think you need to see free speech in action. People want to see people expressing themselves, and the people that come up to me, where are we as a society without understanding and forgiveness? Like, where are we without going, I know what your intention is there. And actually, Leo Kearse, who I love and adore, I was like, I feel a bit stressed because everyone's attacking me about this.
Yeah.
And he went, well, they're the racists. You ain't mentioned anything to do with his race. They're the ones who are talking about his race.
I wonder how I feel about the accent you're doing
I'm trying my best. It's been 2 years out of acting.
No, but now you're back. This is turning into an Oprah show. Like, it's a bit of a sob story. I'm bringing you back.
You're bringing me back.
But listen, thank you so much for coming. Just finally, please do plug the film again, because I'd be fascinated to see what this film's all about.
I think it's going to be great. It's called My Son Hunter. It's written by two journalists, directed by a wonderful man called Robert Darby, who has been in hundreds of films, so you know you're going to get a decent director. And it's essentially a very ambitious, wonderful, interesting film. And I didn't have to do any acting because I was making fake crack half the time.
I mean, I don't envy you. That's absolutely not. Thank you, Lawrence Fox. So, after the break on Free Speech Nation, I'm going to be debating the pros and cons of removing controversial statues. You don't want to miss that. See you then.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
So, looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking very windy with blustery showers in the north, cloudy but mild further south. Let's take a look at the details. Monday will get off to a rather cloudy but mostly dry start across southwestern England. Temperatures will be well above average too, thanks to the southerly wind. The southeast of England will also see mild southerly breezes blowing in, although there'll be a lot of cloud and a few brighter breaks are possible. A different story though across Wales, where cloud will be extensive and thick enough to give some outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle. Much of the northwest of England will also have a grey and damp start to the new week, although skies do look a little brighter towards the north, across North Lancashire into Cumbria. And a similar north to south split is on the cards across northeastern England, with cloud and the odd spot of drizzle affecting some southern parts, while the sun should make an appearance further north. Southern and eastern Scotland will be generally dry and bright, but quite windy, and a very strong and gusty wind will continue to sweep its way across the north and west of the country. A few blustery showers are possible near to the northern coast of Northern Ireland as well, but much of the province should escape fine and bright. Little change expected through the morning, with further blustery showers in the north, patchy rain and some brighter spells elsewhere.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. This week, Banksy announced that he would be raising money to support the 4 people accused of toppling the statue of slave trader Edward Colston in Bristol Harbour. This is the latest development in a culture war that has been going on since May last year. And last month, the statue of founding father Thomas Jefferson in New York City Hall was pulled down. Now, joining me in the studio to discuss this is architect Ike EJ, and also we're joined by the former Oxford student and original Roads Must Fall campaigner, Femi Nylander. Femi, thanks for joining us. I'm going to come to you first, if that's all right. With all of these statues that are coming down, or at least the discussions that are happening around the idea of statues coming down, a lot of people are nervous, not because of what the statues represent. I mean, we can all agree that slavery was a great evil, but rather that the decisions are being made in a non-democratic way. In other words, groups such as the Colston statue, groups are taking it on their own initiative to tear down the statue. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that and their actions?
Well, I think from my own perspective, I mean, I can talk about the Rhodes statue. That was the opposite was true, in a sense. The whole community said they wanted the statue to come down. There was huge protest. Various, the MCR, which is the common room of the college, said that it wanted the statue to come down. In a democratic election, the JCR said it wanted it to come down. The college agreed to take it down, and then they switched their mind because of a few private donors. And that was actually the original problem, that it was a few private donors who were threatening to pull £100 million in donations, which influenced the college's decisions. So a lot of the time, the people who are actually keeping the statues up or influencing the fact that these statues up, it's not a democratic process. It's large amounts of money from very strange people who just like statues of slaveholders.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, that your process was the democratic process, is what you're saying, and that the people basically threatening to withdraw money, that was the more undemocratic approach. But can I ask you about that? Because you just said that you think that these people just happen to like slave traders. But do you really believe that's true? Or do you think that they think the statue is a sort of a historical landmark that we need to preserve so that we remember the bad aspects of our history as well as the good?
Not particularly, because I think in Germany, no one was asking to keep up statues of Hitler in order to remind them. And people in Germany have a much better understanding of the history of the Holocaust than people in the UK have of the history of slavery, despite the fact that there's no road names still named after Hitler or after Goebbels or after other people, despite the fact that there's no statues of senior Nazi members around. They teach it in schools. Britain doesn't really teach its colonial history very much in schools, doesn't really teach its history of slavery much in schools. The only kind of learning I did in school about slavery was about the United States and the civil rights movement there, but expects people to suddenly absorb a knowledge of how bad this history was by keeping up statues of these men. It doesn't really make sense to me.
So thanks for that response, Femi. I want to take that point and bring in Ike now. Hello, thank you for coming. What do you make of Femi's point? I mean, hasn't he got a point that actually these activist groups that are targeting the statue, as he mentioned, of Rhodes at Oriel College and Edward Colston, that this actually, in a sense, raises awareness of a history that we haven't really been taught very satisfactorily?
I'm not sure about the raise awareness issue. Look, we can all agree, as you said, slavery was an awful thing, and any country that perpetuated it, it's a stain on their history, ours, any other country that did as well. But I think the problem with this is, it's almost as if you're shouting at the past, you're arguing at the past. The past can't seek forgiveness. It can't atone for what it's done before. So basically, all you're doing is just kind of endless hamster wheel of nihilistic, pointless recrimination and resentment for which there can be no logical reprieve, because we can't put the past to a jury, as it were.
What about Femi's point about how we don't have statues of Adolf Hitler in Germany, and drawing an implicit connection between Hitler and Rhodes? And as an architect, I mean, you must be particularly aware of the landscape. And what do you make of that argument?
Well, I don't know if there ever were statues of Hitler in Germany. I may be wrong on that. I'm not sure if there were. Obviously, I wouldn't support that. But I think the difference with this is, essentially, as I said, I'm an architect, I believe in the idea of public space. Public space as a kind of concentration of citizenship, a place where community can come together and feel represented within that. Because of that, intrinsically within that, is underpinned by the idea of democracy. As you said, public spaces have to be a democratic representation of us. You can't have a mob or a minority imposing their view on what belongs to all of us. So essentially, what I would say is, I know Femi mentioned about the MCR and certain people who were supporting the statue coming down. Essentially, that statue belongs to Oxford. Oxford belongs to its residents. Poll the whole city, consult all of them. If they agree it should come down, let it come down. If that's not the case, then it shouldn't.
Femi, can I take that point to you? Do you accept that if there are a specific instance of a certain statue and they poll the area, the local area, the residents, and they think that it should stay up on balance, would that be something that you would accept?
In Bristol, in Bristol had wanted the Colston statue to come down. There'd been loads and loads and loads of things pushed for this, and it was just this recalcitrance and this idea that no, we can't do that, we don't want to do that. And especially in the case of Oxford, if there was an actual consultation with the city itself and the citizens of Oxford, I think that would be much preferable to a couple of very, very, very wealthy people holding this decision in their hand. And I would hope, to be honest, knowing what I know about most of the British public, knowing what I know about the people I know in the city of Oxford, that a lot of people, or at least a majority of people, don't really want to celebrate people who traded in trafficking human beings, and people who murdered many people who were colonialists and the rest, and would be happy to say, cool, let's teach this history, and then let's use that plinth, which is a celebration of someone, to celebrate someone that we agree aligns with our values.
Can I ask you about that, Femi? Because you mentioned the word celebration there. Do you accept that sometimes when there are statues erected of historical figures, it's not simply a celebration of the worst aspects of that person's life? It's actually more complicated than that. That it's more about the other things that they achieved. If we take the statue of Thomas Guy at Guy's Hospital, that isn't there to celebrate the fact that he set up the hospital with proceeds made from investment in the slave trade. That's there to celebrate the fact that he helped the poor and destitute of the area, and that actually it's a kind of misinterpretation of what the statue means.
But it's not fair to say. I mean, it's not just robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's me saying, cool, if I'm going to go out and steal and then distribute. I mean, you could say the kind of Robin Hood example. This isn't a Robin Hood example. This is someone making a lot of money off the slave trade, getting very wealthy off that, and then donating some of that money to local communities. It's not fair for me to go if I go to another country, enslave people, denigrate them, force them to become my property, and then I take some of the proceeds from that and give that to another institution. That doesn't take away the crime, and it certainly means that the money that I gathered and was donated, I didn't make it fairly. It's not really my money. It's money that was stolen from the labor of the people I enslaved. They should
totally
put up a statue of the slaves instead of Thomas Guy, because they're the ones who funded the donation.
And again, but can I just come back on this? How far would you go with this? If you're willing to judge someone from the colonial era for having colonial values, which most people of the time would have had or would have shared, do you? I mean, there are activists calling for the statue of Mahatma Gandhi to be removed, for instance, because of some of the comments that he made, some of the comments that would certainly be considered racist by our standards. How far would you want this to go? How many statues do you think should be removed?
So I think actually, it was in Ghana where they removed the statue of Gandhi because Gandhi had some anti-black comments, and when he was working in South Africa, was known to be racist against blacks. And again, there's a line, and it's not. People often say the whole slippery slope argument, right? Which is that if we take down a statue of this guy or this guy, we're going to end up destroying all of these statues of Romans because they had an empire thousands of years ago, and this and that and the rest. And we can all use slippery slope arguments to not do anything. And no one is saying we need to go all the way down to remove any statue, and we shouldn't have any statues in the rest. There's some cases which are clear cut. This is not a very good person. It was not harming anyone to take this statue down. We can put it in a museum. It's making sure that people who are descendants of the victims can exist kind of in that space without worrying about it. But no one wants to go down the slippery slope of remove all statues to anyone who might have accidentally insulted someone back 3,000 years ago.
Let me bring Ike in on that point, because I mean, Femi just mentioned this idea of the importance of having awareness of ancestors, and I walk past Parliament and see the statue of Oliver Cromwell, who was probably responsible for the murder of many of my ancestors. And is that any different, or?
Well, the thing is, what this does as well, which I'm a bit uncomfortable with, it kind of identifies slavery as a defining historic experience in all black people's existence. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologise for the fact slavery was awful, but it doesn't define my existence today. And I don't want people on my behalf changing our public space and our public realm on my behalf because they think it's going to hurt me. It doesn't hurt me. It's a part of history. I'm mature enough to realise that we have matured morally. These things we don't accept now, but we used to in the past. But we have to be more mature than just erasing history because we disagree with it.
And what about Femi's idea that that the slippery slope argument isn't something that we should really observe? Because is he right to say that that's not a thing?
Well, I'm not sure how I buy it, because what's the criteria? I mean, all right, fair enough. We say we're going to take down slave traders, but Femi mentioned, why don't we go back to the Roman Empire? Just because the Romans enslaved people thousands of years ago, does it mean that they were any less evil than the people who did it in the 17th and 18th century? What's the difference? So as far as I'm concerned, the slippery slope argument is very valid. And if you're going to have a clear argument about what you take down and what you don't, I want to know what the criteria is that makes people decide that this person was worse than the other.
Femi, can I put that to you? Can I put Ike's question to you there? Who gets to decide where that red line is? I mean, you said there are clear-cut examples of... But I'm not sure there are, because with every example that we've had, look at Rhodes. There have been huge debates about his legacy in history. So who gets to decide where the line is drawn?
Well, again, just to respond to the point, the fact that there have been huge debates about his legacy in history is a result of the campaign to take the statue down. When the first campaign happened in 2015 in the UK, people were calling him a benefactor and a donor, and then back in 2020, when it kind of started again, people were calling him a colonialist. And the only reason we had the education about who he was because of this campaign. But at the same time, I think the fact is that people are not asking for the statues of the Romans to come down, because the Romans enslaved people a long, long time ago. It's not that, and the descendants of the Roman slaves are not easily identifiable and are not still being in that way oppressed by Italy. If we look at the history of slavery in the UK now, the Windrush scandal, which is a scandal which pertains to people who are directly descended from British slaves was a couple of years ago. And that's people in the Caribbean who have come here and who are still not welcomed by the supposed mother country. We can look at the statistics on race in the UK, which show that black men are 7 times more likely to be in prison than their population in the country. We can look at the stop and search rates and the fact that in some parts of the country they're 20 times more likely to be stopped and searched by police. All of these things. So there's a lot of things which show the Afro-Caribbeans in particular, and I am not Afro-Caribbean, and I don't think from his name that my other guest is as well. So I don't think it's fair for either of us to say, oh, well, I don't really feel slavery that hard, because I'm not sure. I mean, I may be wrong, Ike, but I don't know. We're not the direct descendants of slaves.
Femi, thank you.
Please correct
Thank you very
me
much. I'm going to have to go to Ike.
wrong.
I'm going to have to go to Ike now for a response to that because we're running out of time. Ike, do you have any response to that?
Well, basically, I'd say, again, my identity is irrelevant to this. It's a moral point. I don't think we should be saying because a certain person has this heritage, they have a right to have an opinion on this, and others don't. That's a really dangerous and divisive and segregationist way of looking at these things. And I don't think my heritage is relevant to the fact that, of course, I see slavery as something abhorrent, but again, I don't see punishing history when there's so many other issues we should be dealing with today, which would help people who maybe are underprivileged or are suffering, which could be done, but worrying about statues of men who died hundreds of years ago and using undemocratic means to impose your will on the majority is not the way I think we should be going now.
Well, this is a fascinating debate, and I'm sure it's going to carry on. Please thank my guests, Ike, EJ and Femi Nylander. And still to come on Free Speech Nation, we're going to be taking a look at the stories that have been creating a storm on social media, and I'll also be giving my verdict on your unfiltered dilemmas with the help of my beautiful panel.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. My panel with me until the bitter end is comedians Nick Dixon and Lewis Schaefer. Now, I'd like to get some more questions from the audience, and the first question we have is from Mutada. Mutada, there you are. Just finding the mic.
Yes.
What's your question?
Is it fair to ban entire generations just for not having a chance to have some experience?
I think you're referring to the New Zealand ban, because they've attacked the younger generation specifically. This is... now, let me get this right. They've basically said that if you're of a certain age, you will not be able to buy cigarettes, OK? And so people aged 14 or below, effectively, once the law takes effect, they will never, ever be allowed to purchase tobacco. Now, are you suggesting that that's an experience that's being denied from them?
Yes.
I would agree with that. What do you think, Lewis?
Well, I think in life, the way things are going now, entire generations are banned from things right now. The entire young people are banned from having homes.
Banned from having, but they can't afford to have homes, you know?
Well, what's the difference?
That's
They're
true.
never going to have a home. They're never going to get married. They're never going to have children.
They might do those things, just in poverty. But I mean, the thing about what about a cigarette, though? I mean, this idea of like, surely is it not good for people not to smoke, and therefore to say, you know, let's just prevent the next generation from smoking. Problem solved, right?
It is problem solved, but it's 10 times the problems there's 10 times more problems. People are going to. They're going to look for cigarettes. They're going to go to people's homes and break in for tiny little bits of.
Where are they going to get them exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Nick?
Well, I'm sort of known for my libertarian stances, Andrew.
Well known.
No, but very well known. But when it comes to smoking, I've always said if I was a fascist leader, that is the one thing I would get rid of, because I hate smoking so much. Even in my flat at home, other people's smoke comes into my building, gets in my eyes. I hate smoking so much. This is the one fascist thing I would do. But what's incredible is I didn't realise they actually would do it. I was joking. They've actually done it.
They've actually done it.
Jacinda Ardern, and simultaneously she's also brought in her own state propaganda press she's about to bring in. She's also, you have to ask permission to the government if you wanted to urinate in your friend's house. So New Zealand, this is true, that was a thing in New Zealand. She just recently announced, people, hey, you can now urinate in your friend's house again, luxury. That's what Jacinda Ardern said. And she put it in a sort of smiley, fun way, like, yeah, it's fascism, but in a fun, ironic way. So...
Not a fan, Nick?
Not a fan of Jacinda...
No,
not a fan of it. I mean, I hate smoking, but I also hate Jacinda Ardern even more.
Well, you know, I'm taught...
Wait, is that her name? I thought it was Amber Heard.
Are you thinking of Amber Rudd?
No, Amber Heard, Johnny Depp's wife.
No, I think you're confusing the stories here, Lewis.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, let's try.
It's a joke I didn't get.
Let's try and keep it on track. The thing about this, though, is that I mean, look.
Did anyone get it?
The cigarette thing.
That's why I shouldn't prepare for these segments.
Yeah. The cigarette thing, though, Lewis. I mean, look, to be honest, I mean, the thing is, if you do, I think you were actually hitting the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
If you say to a generation, you cannot do this thing, they will find a way to do it. I mean, did we learn nothing from Prohibition? You know, once you'll have speakeasies for cigarettes. People will go to. It will be a boon to gangsters and criminals who will be able to sell it on the black market. It seems to me, and I'm not quite with you, Nick, because I don't smoke and I've never smoked, but I like the smell of it because my grandmother used to chain smoke around me, and I really like it's quite a sentimental thing. Okay. Anyway, let's probably oversharing now, aren't I? Anyway, let's get another question. This is from Blanche. Where's Blanche? Hello, Blanche.
Hi. Have you ever staged a hoax attack on yourself?
Well, I mean, this is... have you ever staged a hoax attack? Well, I mean, this has got to be the Jussie Smollett case. This is interesting because it's been going on for a while now, but some people didn't hear about this. So Jussie Smollett, who's an actor who was in a show called Empire, he was also in Alien Covenant, I'll have you know, and he orchestrated... As it was found this week, he was found guilty of orchestrating this hate crime against himself, where he hired two actors to put on masks, attack him, pour bleach on him, put a noose around his neck, beat him up, and shout, "This is MAGA country," and shout homophobic and racist slurs. But he paid them to do it. And what was very strange about this is, if you're going to stage a racist attack, why did he hire two black men to do this? This was a weird, just a casting error more than anything. Well, maybe that was... No, they're wearing masks. I suppose it didn't matter, but...
acting opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he was trying to help them. But the thing is, no, this is bizarre, isn't it? Because this... And it's also quite contemptible. I mean, the idea of hiring people, faking a hate crime... I mean, the mind boggles. Lewis.
No, I think it's something, as an American, I'm quite familiar with this, is that I think his problem was bad acting.
Well...
And even worse, writing.
But do you think he was bad? Did you see the interview with him when he...
I thought the interview was amazing, but,
yes.
but it wasn't good enough to overcome really bad writing that he had written. So,
this is exactly right. Yeah. His performance was very good. I believed it. Yes. When I saw his performance, I thought, wow, that's a horrible thing to happen. But actually, the scenario is too implausible.
Right.
He goes out for a sandwich at 2 o'clock at night to Subway, right?
Yeah.
And then these people attack him, and they just so happen to have a noose with them, and they shout. I mean, it's just full of holes, isn't it?
In a gay area of Chicago, they shout, "This is MAGA country," which it obviously isn't. They weren't. In Texas or something. Well, yeah, exactly. So.
It's what Lewis says. It's the writing that was the problem.
It's the writing that was the problem. But the other thing, you shouldn't let off the Democrats, and you shouldn't let off all the media people who were leapt to his defence in the first instance when it was already absurd. And they said, "Oh, it's so terrible. Oh, Jussie Smollett." And there's these great compilations on the internet, these clips of everyone defending him and saying how terrible it is.
Well, it's because now we have this idea of believe the victim, but automatically believe any claim.
No, I don't think it is.
You don't think
I don't think it is that. I think it's a very. I think what happened is with black people. If I can speak for black people. is that...
I don't think you can, Lewis, but let's see what happens.
Let me give it a try. is that it's the same thing that happened to O.J. Simpson, okay? Every black person that I knew that O.J. Simpson had killed his wife. And they were happy when he got off. When O.J. Simpson got off, even though they knew that he had killed his wife.
But that was different, wasn't it? Because that became about race relations in America. That became about something else.
And this is also about race relations, that every black American believes that there's systemic racism, and they also believe that black people have been put upon for so long that if this guy gets one over on the white man...
I don't know, Lewis. There were a lot of black people who were saying this is clearly not true. They were,
yes, I agree with you. Most of the black people said it was not true, but they still wanted him to get over on the man.
What do you think?
Well, I just want to say, for Ofcom regulations, OJ was not guilty. All right.
But he was found responsible for their deaths in a civic court. Is that right? I think that was what happened.
I'm just saying free OJ, but the thing is...
You're free to say it.
And I disagree with you. It's a comedy show, hopefully, at times. And I disagree with the... I disagree with the black people were supporting justice.
I disagree. I think all sorts of people had all sorts of opinions, irrespective of race, on this issue. But also, it was just like you say. But I do agree with about bad writing. I thought it was terrible writing. Maybe it was just a big avant-garde performance art piece. Who knows? Maybe it's just misunderstood. Anyway, let's get another question here from Ian. Where's Ian?
I'm here.
Hello, Ian. Oh, microphone passed to Ian, please. There we go. Ian, what's your question?
Yeah. Are there any issues that it's OK to exclude whole ethnic groups from the conversation?
I mean, I would say absolutely not, but I know what you're referring to. This is this story that just came out today. And this is Goldsmiths University, where a group has banned white and Jewish students from attending a meeting which is to do with Palestine and discussing issues relating to Palestine. But actually saying that white students and Jewish students aren't allowed. Isn't there a precedent in history where this didn't go too well? I don't think this is progressive. I don't see how you could see this as progressive. I mean, I don't understand. Nick,
the white students were allowed back then, probably. But yeah, I know. I said, as I said on Twitter, you've gone so woke that you're banning Jews. That's where you might have gone.
But what do you think is going through their heads?
Well, it also, I don't know what's going through their heads, but it reminds me of what happened to Brett Goldstein famously at Evergreen College, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They had a day where he wasn't even allowed on campus. This liberal Jewish professor wasn't even allowed. Like, oh, you've banned the Jewish professor from the campus because you're the good people. OK. Yeah, so what can I say? It's obscene.
It is obscene. I mean, speaking as... you can represent Jewish people, by the way, as a Jew. You can do that, right? But you can't represent black people.
I was representing white people. We'd both be banned.
So you would both be banned, exactly. Well, how would you feel about that, Lewis?
I think it's this kind of craziness is inevitable. What I like about this show is there's the hope. That's what makes this. There's the hope that people are going to get along, and this is wrong, and you can't do this, and people are just horrible human beings, not just from Durham.
Yeah, but to be fair, they have to live in Durham, you know. It's not.
Yeah.
So are you pro this then, Lewis? Because I'm surprised at that.
No, I don't think, Lewis, you're not.
I think, you know what, I haven't been to many pro-Palestinian meetings, but if somebody said to me, you don't have to go, I'd say thank you very much.
All right, but
this saying you can't go, that's quite a big difference.
I think it is a big difference, isn't it? And but this is, I think what I'm getting from you, Lewis, is that you don't approve of what's going on here, but you're resigned to it.
You're black-pilled, you're nihilistic.
You're black-pilled, is that what they call it? Me
and Lewis have a little forum.
This sounds very sort of InfoWars now. I don't know what this is about. But so you're basically saying that, you know, the world is going to hell, so let's just accept it. Because I don't know if that's the right approach.
It isn't the right approach for you because it puts you out of a job. But I think it's...
It also puts you out of a job.
Yeah, I guess it does. I'm totally against it. And it's
but you believe in taking a stand about this stuff because it can't... Oh, by the way, I'm being told that the show is almost over, so it just 10 seconds.
I'm always taking pointless, futile stands. That's pretty much what I do. You've not seen my Twitter.
I have. And I think it's a great thing that you do because every little thing that we do, every person who takes a stand, it has a cumulative effect. I mean, this is... Well, look, I'm more optimistic than Lewis. But listen, everyone, thank you for joining us here tonight on Free Speech Nation. This was the week when Jussie Smollett was found guilty for staging a hate crime against himself. A top dancer was cancelled from her own company for expressing her opinions. Do check that story out online. It's really horrible. And students at Durham University decided that Rod Liddle is the devil incarnate. They really need to stop reading The Guardian. Thank you so much to my panel, Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon, and to all of my guests this evening. And you at home can apply to be part of the audience. And details of how to do that, you can do that right at the bottom of the screen now. Just go to sroaudiences.com, apply and come along and join in. And if you want to hear more from Jason Miller, you can, because that podcast is now available to download wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for coming. See you next week on Free Speech Nation. Goodbye.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
So, looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking very windy with blustery showers in the north, cloudy but mild further south. Let's take a look at the details. Monday will get off to a rather cloudy but mostly dry start across southwestern England. Temperatures will be well above average too, thanks to the southerly wind. The southeast of England will also see mild southerly breezes blowing in, although there'll be a lot of cloud and a few brighter breaks are possible. A different story though across Wales, where cloud will be extensive and thick enough to give some outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle. Much of the northwest of England will also have a grey and damp start to the new week, although skies do look a little brighter towards the north, across North Lancashire into Cumbria. And a similar north to south split is on the cards across northeastern England, with cloud and the odd spot of drizzle affecting some southern parts, while the sun should make an appearance further north. Southern and eastern Scotland will be generally dry and bright, but quite windy, and a very strong and gusty wind will continue to sweep its way across the north and west of the country. A few blustery showers are possible near to the northern coast of Northern Ireland as well, but much of the province should escape fine and bright. Little change expected through the morning, with further blustery showers in the north, patchy rain and some brighter spells elsewhere.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark.